Alright, so now we're going to talk a little about how samples really can be representative of larger groups. So one concern that a lot of people have when they think about statistics is they didn't sample a lot of people. So we want to talk about how we can actually make sure that a small subset of people can actually represent a larger group. And the most important thing to keep in mind when doing this is the goal. So why are we going out to collect the data? And we'll talk more about why that's very important to us here shortly. So the first thing we're going to do is recall two of the definitions that we've talked about before. The first one being our population and the second one being our sample. Now when we talk about the population, this is going to be everyone that's in the entire group of interest. And we had an example where this was just undergraduate students at NKU versus we had one that was all American. So this population can be very different in the size that it actually is, and that's okay. But once we know the population, then we take our sample, and this is the elements that we actually collect data on. An important part about this is, of course, our sample should be part of the population. That is, if you decide who your population is, your sample should be part of that population. Now that's an important thing for us to first decide, but again, we're still going to keep in mind the why. Why are we going out to collect data? And we're going to talk about this rule. It's called the fundamental rule for using data for inference. And the idea is here is to figure out at what point can a sample be representative of a larger group, but it says it also matters the question that we're interested in. So an example that I like to start with is, do you think Cincinnati could represent all of the United States? Most people's gut instinct here is no, Cincinnati could not represent all of the United States. But I like to argue it actually matters what is of interest to you. So for example, if you were looking at trying to look at the average height of either men or women, could Cincinnati represent the entire United States? So what we need to ask ourselves to decide the answer to this question is, do you believe that people in Cincinnati are all that different than the rest of the United States? And right now you're probably thinking, well, yes, but I haven't finished it yet. So do you believe that people in Cincinnati are all that different than the rest of the United States when it comes to height? Because that's what we're measuring here, is just height. Is it well known that only really tall people live in Cincinnati, that only really short people live in Cincinnati? So do I actually think that there is a difference by living in Cincinnati when it comes to height? I can't think of any really good reason why I would think that. So because of that, I think that Cincinnati is probably representative of the United States. At least when it comes to height. Hope that idea makes some sense. But if instead I was talking about looking at average commute time, I'm going to start this question the same way. I'm not actually going to write it out all the same. But again, do you believe that people in Cincinnati are all that different than the rest of the United States when it comes to commute time? does your location, you think, impact your commute time? Well, here I actually do think this is true. So yes, I do think that they're actually different when it comes to commute times. So because of that, Cincinnati is probably not representative of U.S. commute times. So hopefully by looking at these two examples, it makes some sense as to what we have to pay attention to. We don't want to just get a gut instinct and say, oh, that sample can't be representative. It really comes down to, what are we trying to answer? What information did we collect on that person? So it really does make a difference of what type of question you're asking. Now, one time questions that I will get asked is wanting to know, well, if you're interested in all of the United States, why would you only sample from Cincinnati? Of course, there's many different reasons that would be logical. If you lived in Cincinnati, it's very convenient to just be able to sample people here in Cincinnati. When it comes to businesses, it's much generally, more efficient both for time and money to be able to just sample those around us instead of having to go to a much larger area as well. So whenever you're reading things about a sample, always decide, first of all, who the population is, and ask yourself, can this sample represent this population? And pay attention to what information they're collecting and why they got it.